From 1968 to 1970, I was in the Peace Corps in Ethiopia. I was a teacher in a village called Baligoba, which is in the central highlands, about a 2-day bus ride south of Addis Ababa, or a short plane flight in an old DC-3 or a C-47. Baligoba is at about 10,000 feet altitude, which is about twice as high as Denver, the mile-high city. It's almost twice as high as Paradise Lodge up on Mount Rainier. So you can feel the altitude in your shortness of breath. Now, those of you who have spent time at high altitude might know that if you drink alcohol at high altitude, it affects you more quickly and more strongly. On the other hand, if you live long enough at high altitude so your body has adjusted, you're more efficient at absorbing oxygen, then when you go down to low altitude, you feel like you've got a higher capacity for alcohol. Well, after I'd been up in Baligoba for a whole school year, my summer project was in the village of Gambela, Ethiopia, which is on the Blue Nile River close to the border of South Sudan, and it's at about 1,500 feet altitude. And by the way, for those of you who hear the news about South Sudan, there was conflict going on back then. So there were 2 other Peace Corps volunteers in the village that summer, plus a group of college students who were in something called Crossroads Africa, which is kind of like a mini Peace Corps thing where people pay their own expenses and do a short project in some developing country. In fact, I looked up Crossroads Africa on the web recently, and it still exists, so you can do it. So about the first weekend after I got there, this whole group of us went to the one bar in town, sat around a big outside table, and I decided I'm going to be a big shot. I'm a couple of years older than these college kids. I'll treat them all. So I went up to the bar and bought a bottle of Malati cognac. Malati is a company that was formed by an Italian guy, Luigi Malati, back in the 1930s when Italy had some colonialism going on very briefly in Ethiopia. It didn't go well for the Italians. I brought it back to the table, a bunch of glasses, told everybody, here, have some. And every single person said, oh, I don't want to drink cognac, I'm going to have a beer. Well, I had already poured myself a glass, I couldn't take the bottle back, so I just sat down with the bottle. And it was one of those nights, you know, where you're laughing and you're talking and you're telling stories and you're not paying any attention to how much you're drinking. And it got to be about midnight. People started going off to bed. I took a look. I had less than an inch left in the bottle of that bottle of cognac. Now, that's a long time ago. It's probably a liter, I imagine. Maybe it was a quart, whatever. So took it with me, went back to the building where I was sleeping. It was an old Italian building. I sat on the porch. There were some chairs. Sat down with my 2 friends, continued talking. I looked and said, well, I might as well kill the bottle. Tipped it up like this. And I didn't know this could happen, but I could hear the blood leaving my head. There's this sucking sound. My stomach wasn't well. It hit me like that. Leaned up over the balcony, and my friend says, Carl, are you all? Oh, you're not all right. The next thing that I was aware of, I was waking up because there was this loud moaning noise. Oh. And I got awake enough to realize, of course, that it was I who was making that moaning noise. And I opened my eyes and realized I was sitting on the steps of the outhouse, which was about 15, 20 feet from the river, where there are crocodiles. And in fact, a couple of summers before, a Peace Corps volunteer had been killed and eaten by a crocodile. So I decided I should get further from the river. And my brain said, stand up. Nothing happened. My friends heard that I'd stopped moaning. They said, Carl, what? why don't you go to bed? I can't. Why not? My legs don't work. So 2 friends came, picked me up under the armpits, dragged me off to bed. I woke up the next morning, and maybe it's because there was no mixer. There wasn't. I understand hangovers come from the sugar and the junk in the mixer. I was drinking pretty much pure alcohol. I didn't have much of a hangover. But even though I didn't, I decided that 1 bottle of Malati cognac is 1 too many.